This is a Voyescape podcast. You can find all of our travel podcasts from around the world at voyescape.com.
Welcome to Travel in 10. This week, we're diving into a place that was once the heart of the Habsburg Empire, one of the most powerful dynasties in Europe, a city that shaped culture, music, and politics for centuries, but now maybe a bit underrated when it comes to being a travel destination in Europe. Paris, known for its romance, London for its energy, Rome, its ancient history, but Vienna, I don't know. What is Vienna all about? What is it known for? It's a city I haven't been to yet, but I know my co-host has been to many times and been there very recently as well. So today we're diving into Vienna. Tim, how are you doing this week?
I'm great, David. Great to see you. Yeah, I really agree with that assessment. I really think that Vienna is, it was obviously the capital of the Habsburg Empire. It has all that accumulated wealth over the centuries, and it's left all these most beautiful, stunning things to see. But I really do feel like it's underrated. People talk about, oh, I'm going to go to Europe, as you mentioned. I'm going to go to Paris. I'm going to go to London. I'm going to go to Berlin, even Istanbul, Athens. All these cities, Barcelona. We just talked about Barcelona. But I think Vienna often gets left off the list. And I've been several times. I've been there on river cruises. Most recently, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, I was there to dance. And so it is really a beautiful city. And I believe that it's a city that every traveler should have at the top of their list.
Okay, well, we got to start there. To dance, what is that all about? What was the story there?
So so it is this year, significantly, is the 200th anniversary of the birthday of Johann Strauss II. And maybe our listeners would not be necessarily as familiar with him as they would be with somebody like Beethoven or Mozart, but he was known as the Waltz King, and he is iconic. He is really, a person in Vienna that is venerated. And so in honor of that, they are doing a lot of special celebrations this year. In addition to the normal ball season, which every trade union, all the different groups in Vienna do their own ball. And so one of my editors emailed me and she said, how would you describe in a word your dance skills? And I emailed her back and I said, terrible. And she said, perfect. We're going to send you to Vienna and you're going to learn how to waltz. And so this is probably one of the big recommendations that I would have when you're in Vienna. And I have other related recommendations, but I'm just going to start out with you can take waltz lessons like I did at the Elmayer Dance School. I did about an hour. It wasn't like a big commitment. It might have been 2 hours. And even with my complete lack of coordination and rhythm, by the end, I felt like I was, let's not say proficient. Let's not even say capable. I was okay. I didn't fall down. I didn't knock anyone else down. And so, I felt like I learned the basic steps. And so this is something that people can do when they're in Vienna. David, how are your dance skills? Are you much of a waltzer?
I'm not much of a waltz guy. You don't strike me as much of a waltz guy either. So I'm surprised to hear that is what drove you to Vienna. But I'm sure a unique experience for sure. What else when people aren't dancing? What else would you say are sort of the go-to activities, particularly a first visit? If somebody's going to Vienna for the first time, what do they really need to do when they come visit the city?
Stephansplatz, right in the middle of the city, is the main square, and that's really a good place to start. Not far away, the city core. Even though this was basically the capital, not of the world, but of a significant part of the world for a while, the city core is quite small and walkable. And you can go from Stephensplatz to the Hofburg Palace, which was the main home of the Habsburgs for many, many centuries. And you can do the royal apartments there, which is are somewhat similar to what you might see at other royal apartments in other cities. But the thing that I thought was most interesting there was they had a museum dedicated to Sisi, who was Empress Elizabeth. And she is, I think, for me as a North American, was not familiar to me. I don't know if you've heard of her, but they had a museum there in Austria and Germany. Everybody knows about Cece, and she had this very complex, sometimes dark, fascinating life, and they have a museum dedicated to her. So that was really my introduction to Cece. So I would do the royal apartments at the Hofburg, and then I would also do this Cece museum, Schönbrunn Palace, also a little bit outside of the city core. That I believe that was the Summer Palace, in many ways much more impressive than the Hofburg Palace. So that's another place. And I'm just going to mention two other spots that are worth it, that are related to this anniversary of Strauss. There's a place that is called the House of Strauss, that was purchased by the Strauss family. It's a former dance hall during this sort of waltzing rage in the 19th century. People would get out of their houses and they would go and waltz and dance. And there were many dozens of these dance halls. So they took one of these and they restored it and dedicated it to the Strauss family. So it's a museum, a traditional museum dedicated to the Strauss, not just Johann Strauss, but the Strauss family. And then there's this very new attraction. I believe when I was there just now in the fall, past fall, it was brand new, and it's called New Dimensions, and it is an immersive exhibit, an immersive museum dedicated to Johann Strauss II and his life. And it's one of these places where you put on the headphones, and as you walk through, everything automatically changes. So, for a composer and a musician, to hear his compositions and to see, in bright detail, all of these scenes from his life and from the pieces that he composed, it really was super impressive. So those are kind of my main things to do when you're in town.
You've also mentioned to me, I know we were a few weeks ago, we were talking about Christmas markets. You were saying for your money, this is probably some of the best Christmas markets in Europe as well, right?
Yeah, especially the one, I believe it's at City Hall, Rathaus, in Vienna. Probably, I mean, with apologies to Munich, because Munich's really good too. This is probably the best Christmas market, I think, in the world. I mean, it's just the grand scale that it's on, and then they have this amazing track that you can skate on. It's kind of like a circuit, and then all the usual beautiful things that you have at Christmas markets, from the arts and crafts and the sausages and the mulled wine and everything. So great Christmas markets as well.
You're talking a little bit about some of what to eat there at the Christmas market. Let's maybe dive into that. Both, like, what are some of your favorites in terms of places to eat, but also any really unique or memorable dishes, things that you would recommend people really try when they're there?
For sure. When I was there, just on this most recent tour a few months ago, we did a tour. We did kind of a music tour, walking tour, which I would recommend also to do in Vienna. And then we finished. It was kind of a chilly night, kind of a dark night. And we finished at this place called Palais Tudesco, which was a palace that was built by an aristocratic family in the middle of the 19th century. And that's mostly, I wouldn't say this is a place where you go for a 6-course dinner. Mostly desserts and champagne, but they had grand piano and just this beautiful. I mean, it's called a palace. It feels like a palace. It is a palace. So a great place to go. I would say, if you're looking for a date night with your wife, or you're looking for just kind of a special place to go and have a quick bite in a beautiful place. For foodies, for people who really want great local food, there's a Michelin listed restaurant called Restaurant Rote Bar, which is in the Sacher Hotel. And they take the Viennese favorites, and then they put an upscale spin on them. So you think about what's the most classic Viennese meal, Wiener Schnitzel, right? And so they take that and they make it with suckling veal and all these beautiful local ingredients. And again, it's a beautiful setting, historic building. So I would say restaurant Rope Bar. And then I'm just gonna say, kind of a local favorite. If you're looking for kind of a simple place where the Viennese people go, Cafe Central, or Cafe Central, opened in 1976. They serve this probably a signature meal called Tafelspitz, which is a boiled beef in broth with horseradish, which sounds a lot better than which is better than it sounds, I should say. And so yeah, so there's a lot of good food in Vienna.
And you talked a bit about it being this underrated city in Europe. I mean, why do you think that is? Why is it so underrated? And B, what would you say are kind of something that people don't know about it? Something maybe more unexpected, quirky, things that people might not know about the city.
That's a good question. Why it's underrated? I think it's just even though Vienna Airlines, or I should say Austrian Airlines, is one of the major world airlines, in some ways it's not really on the way. I think a lot of the places we visit are on the way to somewhere else. So, if you're flying Air France, you might stop over for a few days in Paris or, London. I know many of my visits to London were because I was flying through London to the continent somewhere. So I think that might be it. And it's, yeah. And in terms of things that are kind of quirky and interesting, I mean, it's got one of the best shopping streets in Europe, which is beautiful, and they've got this great and I guess many European cities have this, but they have this great statue that's dedicated to the end of the plague. And you see it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. Who's this dedicated? What is this? And it's dedicated to the end of the Black Plague, which is, obviously something that was a big problem in Europe for many, many years. What are the other things? And I was going to put this into my can't miss, but let's do the can't miss right now, which is kind of a quirky, not quirky, but kind of unexpected thing, is the fact that Vienna is very close to another European capital, and this is definitely a European capital that people maybe don't have anywhere near the top of their list, but it's Bratislava, which is the capital of Slovakia. So people don't know, for many years, Czech Republic and what they call Czechia now, and Slovakia were one country called Czechoslovakia. Slovakia is a separate country. Its capital is Bratislava. It's on the Danube, and from Vienna, you can actually get on a ferry. It's only 75 minutes. The transit is on the Danube River, this world famous, beautiful European river. And you arrive in Bratislava 75 minutes later. So you can do two European capitals. You don't have to get a car or a train. You can ride on the river, and you get to experience both in one day. So I think that's probably my most hidden, quirky, interesting thing to do there.
There we go. And so for people like me and you who like to try and cover off as many countries around the world as they can, an easy way to get a 2-for-1 there in one trip. So that's good. And for what I've seen, Bratislava is really affordable as well, right? Like you could you like stay in Bratislava and use that as your base to explore? Like, are they close enough and transportation's easy enough between that you could kind of stay on that side and tour Vienna from there?
You could. I mean, you could. I've never actually stayed overnight in Bratislava. I've been there, again, riding the river, whether it's on a river cruise or something like this ferry. But ostensibly, yeah, you could. And I mean, Bratislava in itself is quite a lovely place. It's got this hilltop castle. It's got a very walkable old town. Again, it's right on the Danube River. So you could do it in reverse. Although Vienna, I would say Vienna itself, even though it is a major European capital, it's a historic place, it's to some extent a popular attraction. It is not necessarily the most expensive city in comparison with Paris or London or places like that. It is relatively affordable. So my recommendation would be stay in Vienna, do the day trip to Bratislava, but you could do it in reverse as well.
And if you are staying in Vienna, what are your go-tos? Where should somebody be checking out for places to stay?
Great question. So on this trip that I just did in the fall, we stayed at a beautiful place called Palais Coburg. Again, this is an actual palace, a lot of palaces in Vienna. And it was built right into the city walls. And the room that I had was just, the ceiling was just glass skylights, and the view out over the church spires of the city was just absolutely stunning. Sometimes I would just sit. They had a kind of a separate living room and bedroom. Sometimes I would just sit on the couch and just love, and enjoy the view. So Palais Coburg, and they have a great wine cellar with a lot of unique, cool wines. You can do a wine tour down there. We did that with the little group that I was with. So that is a recommendation. A couple other quick ones. I would say, Park Hyatt is always a good option when you're in Vienna. That's probably the hottest and coolest hotel bar in the city. And you know what? You can't go wrong with the Ritz-Carlton, right? Ritz-Carlton was built from 4 separate 19th century palaces, and also again feels like a palace. So those would be my recommendations for places to stay.
Amazing. Well, sounds like a great destination. I'm disappointed. It's one that on my recent trip to Europe, I tried to get to, but we just couldn't make flights align to, I managed to hit 4 countries in, I think, the 10 days I had in Europe last time I was there, but it was the 5th I was trying to sneak in and didn't manage to get there. So looking forward to getting there on a future trip. But that's some awesome recommendations, Tim, and certainly somewhere I'm looking forward to checking out soon. So thank you again for taking the time as you travel around the world. Always great to get your recommendations. And for everybody listening, as always, we would love it if you've got time to give us a rating or review, whether that's on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you catch our podcasts. And check out all of our other shows from around the world at voyescape.com, where not only can you find all the past episodes of Travel in 10 that Tim and I have done, but also several other travel podcasts with other podcasters and other content creators that we're working with from around the world to continue bringing you great recommendations on how to travel more and how to travel better to different destinations around the world.
Thanks so much, David. Always a pleasure to chat with you, and I hope you have a fantastic week. Can't wait to chat with you next week.
Sounds great. Thanks very much. If you love spontaneous travel, you'll love Winging It. Host James Hammond shares backpacking stories, travel tips, and insights from the 75-plus countries he's traveled to around the world. Check it out at voyescape.com.